Welcome everyone to Vibing with Stay Grayy. My goal for this show is to make sure that the young lives out there are inspired and impacted to become transformational and better themselves. So today's guest is quite an empowering woman and disruptive. She's very hilarious and I like her gist and how she does her things. She's a woman in STEM and empowers other generational women to do the same. She's the founder of an organization called Young Stripes that's on a journey to influence and empower, educate, and incubate young STEMists and create great leaders out there. So everyone, welcome, get set, and I'm hoping that you'll learn so much about her. We'll be talking about imposter syndrome and how she navigated her life throughout it and how she learned how to live with it and how to just achieve her success despite it. So welcome, Hemanshi.
Thank you.
How are you? How are you doing today?
Good. I'm actually much happy because you said I'm a hilarious person.
Yes, you're very hilarious, and we had a conversation earlier which was really exciting, and I like your energy.
Thank you.
And you're a woman in STEM, so you are so inspiring. There are a lot of young ladies out there who look up to you because they're like, I want to be like her. Maybe a young kid who's a science geek or just want to pursue mathematics or technology. She says that Hemanshi is my number one idol and I want to be like her. So yeah, tell me more about what you're doing at Young Stripes so that we can kick into a conversation.
Sure. So Young Stripes is basically a social enterprise that aims to, like you said, educate, empower, and incubate the next generation of STEMists and leaders. The idea behind Young Stripes was to ensure that our upcoming generations can see STEM in a positive light. We always think of STEM as this hard career that is only for, the nerdy people, and it's not fun or innovative. And my personal experience has been that, STEM is something that's incredibly fun, incredibly innovative. And no matter what technology you use or what you do on a day-to-day basis, STEM is involved in every aspect of what you do. And my aim with Young Stripes was thus to empower kids from a very young age to be able to see it in positive light, to be able to be inspired to pursue these as careers. Because at the end of the day, any country's socioeconomic development is highly reliant on its STEMists. So investing in the current generation ensures that we have a more sustainable future, both economically, socially as well, because a lot of the solutions to our problems need to come from our communities, and that comes through our young minds. It comes through our future STEMists and, leaders of tomorrow that can actually create an impact that can continue on long beyond even, the years that I live. So that's my aim.
Okay, so in accordance to what you do, I believe that there are a lot of high-achieving women who are quite attached with imposter syndrome. They find it quite difficult to believe in their abilities, despite the noise out there that this course is supposed to be empowered with boys only. It's a boys only course that men can only do it. But when a female does it, she feels that as if her esteem is quite low because she doesn't believe in herself. So take me through your journey, through your career and your high school, probably uni years, and how you navigated through this course and beating imposter syndrome.
Sure. So, exactly like what you said, growing up, especially, in Kenya, there's very few female role models that we had in STEM careers. And the ones that I prominently remember, it's like my age, was I only heard of Marie Curie, right?
Yeah.
And she's one of the biggest inspirations I had because she was trailblazing in a time and age when, women's education was not even looked upon that seriously. She went on to get not just one, but 2 Nobel Prizes. She went on to create technologies that, or discover scientific phenomenon that not any other men at her level was able to do it. And that sort of stood out to me to begin with. But again, that was a story outside of our world. It was not something that in Kenya I'd never heard of a female STEMist. When you talk about doctors as well, it was mostly men at the top of the field. And, a lot of people around you, the noise around you, the culture as well, would always tell you that, there's certain careers that are for men and there's certain careers that are for women. For me, what was very good, I'd say, is my mom was a very open-minded person and she really taught me a lot about the world and she never discriminated. So in African culture, in Asian culture, there's a lot of importance given to the male child. But in my household, it was very different. My mom would always make my brother do the same things that we did as girls. And that's how I sort of grew up. I did not understand any sort of discrimination, at least at a personal level. And that inspired me to trailblaze and do things that I wanted. I was, I definitely say at the end of whatever I do, my backbone has been my mother. She's given me that freedom to make my decisions, to choose any career I want. And she's allowed me to make these calls that, outside there people would say radical, like leaving the UK and leaving opportunities there as we see them, to come back to Kenya and work now in the education field, which is very diverse from my career. That's something that was never heard of. We always teach women to play safe. And that's where a lot of imposter syndrome comes in, because STEM careers is never about playing safe. You're there, you're innovating, you're inventing. You have to do trial and errors. Your first answer will never be right. So one of the first things I had to learn all through my life was not playing safe. To be open to, doing experiments. Like, we always say boys will be boys, because we say they'll experiment and they'll do these things and that, which is fair. But why don't we encourage the girls to do the same? Right? So that's where I'd say my journey started, was being allowed to do the same things that, my brother, my friends, everyone were doing. And when I decided to study, a STEM career, it was basically because I was really passionate about green technology. I was very inspired that I want, from a very young age, I used to go like, one day I want to win a Nobel Prize. And in my dictionary, it was either, and this was a joke I'd make, that, it's either I will get a Nobel Prize for peacekeeping because I won't kill someone, or it will be for studying, because I was such a nerdy person. And so that's the kind of perspective I went with. I knew I wanted to study a lot. I was very nerdy. I was very curious and inquisitive. I want answers. I'm that one. I was the person that, my teachers would have to say, I'll come back to you with the answer to. So I used to do that a lot. I'd love reading anytime, even to date. If I don't know an answer, I will go out and seek the answer. So that's how I got into STEM. But rightfully, when you said, there were no female role models. There was no one telling me how to navigate this. I was fortunate enough to be able to go abroad and study, but somehow the story there is also very similar. A lot of young girls at my age did not have many female role models. If you look in my department, at least, the degree that I did as a chemical engineer has a better ratio of girls to, women to men in these fields. But if you look at other STEM careers, like if you look at, robotics or control systems engineering, those numbers are dramatically different. The ratio will be quite off. And then when you go to university and you don't have a peer group, right, that is similar to you, it does demotivate you sometimes. You do question whether you're in the right place. We had a lot of disadvantages, again, coming from Kenya, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Practical education is not something we have in this country much, especially in science fields. So that was a dramatic change, and that made me question my own abilities. Yeah, I was really good. I was book smart. But I started questioning, do I really fit into this place? Like, is this a world that I belong into? And as women, again, we really underestimate ourselves. So that's one skill that I, again, learned throughout my university, was you need to give yourself credit where it's due. And, I've done a lot of talks around imposter syndrome. First of all, understanding where my imposter syndrome was coming from was very important. Giving a name to it, giving a name to the feeling that came with it. Was it shame? Was it anger? Was it self-disappointment, right? Those kind of things was very important to know, because then I know how to navigate it. If it's shame, why am I ashamed of, who I am? So I learned to be more confident and comfortable in my skin. If it was anger, where was that anger coming from? Is it just frustration because I could not use the concepts I was learning in class in real life? And that just simply meant that I have to upskill myself. So being able to identify what sort of feelings was attached with my imposter syndrome really helped me combat it much faster. And we normally struggle with that, again, as women, to be able to have a lot of introspect about how we feel about ourselves. There's actually, yesterday I read something, I was watching a movie yesterday, and one of the best thought pieces I got out of it was, he said, your reputation is what others think of you. Your character is what you really are. And the minute I started focusing on my character rather than my reputation, I became so comfortable in my skin because I knew what my morals and my ethics were. I knew what my vision and mission in life was. And I just work with that. So I do not mind what, any random person thinks of me, or even people that genuinely care for me. There is a place for that. There's a boundary to which I really appreciate what people think of me. But more than anything else, I started believing in my personality, in my character, in the things that I felt I stood for. And that's how I think I've been able to navigate. I can definitely never say I've combated in the imposter syndrome, but I'm definitely more able to cope with it, to navigate it on my daily basis, and function despite all of that.
Because it's something that recurs. Do you?
Definitely. I think at different stages, again, taking back to my talk that I mentioned earlier, there's different types of imposter syndromes, and in different phases of my life, I've had different types of imposter syndromes. So it does reoccur. It also happens a lot when you have life-changing moments. So when, your environment changes, you could have different types of imposter syndrome when something sudden happens in your life. So when I moved back to Kenya, for example, my imposter syndrome shifted a lot from being about myself as much to I had a point to prove, right? It was a little bit at that point where I was like, I had to learn all these things because I'd thrown myself in the deep end. And that's when I was again questioning, am I built for now being an educator? And I learned to navigate that. So this repeats, and it will repeat for the rest of your life. Not to say that, only women suffer with this. I think every young person today has some level of imposter syndrome, and everyone's is different. Everyone has their own ways of navigating. But yeah, it will definitely recur, and it will impact your mental health as well. There's no doubt in that. It's what I say is, it's just one aspect of your life. You're so much more than that, right? You're so much more than that imposter syndrome. You're so much more than that anxiety or that depression. I do not let those things define me. On any given day, these things are there. They're obviously, they do weigh you down at some point, but it's other things. What more are you than that? I say that my life mission is to be happy. So I'm happy is more than I'm depressed. My life mission is to at least impact one child, and that's what motivates me to fight all these imposter syndromes, all these mental health struggles, and keep going on. So definitely, it will recur. It will be a lot. You just have to tackle it head on rather than running away from it.
Yeah, because I don't feel like it's just, you just run over it just like that, because it's something that comes every now and then.
Definitely.
Probably you've been offered a great job. You start doubting yourself. Can I do this?
Exactly.
I feel like a fraud. Maybe I'm not cut out for this job.
Yeah.
So how do you tackle that doubt? Because many people do have doubts.
Definitely.
Probably it's because of their self-esteem.
Yeah.
But this thing comes now and then. I also have it.
Sure.
I usually doubt myself every single time. And I do know that I can do it. But the thing is, something in my mind, that chat is telling me, you're not cut out for this, you're not ready, just play safe.
So I think, that's actually genuinely it. Like even me on a daily basis, there's 100 doubts, especially with, how my life and, how my university experience and everything is escalated as well. I'd say the doubt factor is always there. You're always second guessing yourself, especially as women. You won't just go at your whim. We're not very impulsive, right? In as much as people think that women, we're very thought out, and sometimes we do overthink things, and that's where a lot of the doubt comes. So I'd say 3 things that genuinely made me deal with that doubt aspect. First of all is, do not seek external validation. That is very important. Start to think of your decisions, own your decisions, and whatever the outcome is. I have this thing, what I call my regret philosophy, okay? And in my regret philosophy, I say, I've never regretted anything in my life, simply because if I went back in time in that same situation with the same information and the same decision-making abilities, would I have chosen anything different?
No,
Most likely not. A lot of regret comes from the fact that you're doing it retrospectively, not introspectively, right? Because now in the future, you know better. Yes. But back then you didn't. And nothing could change that. So first of all, do not, second guess yourself on that. What decision seemed right at that point you made that? That's one of it. The second thing is have a very good support system around you. It's very important to get the right people to be your advisors, to be your mentors, to be the people who you take your doubts to. Of course, it's always great to, especially when in doubt, it's good to bounce off an idea from someone else. But one thing is people are allowed to advise, and that's where it should end. Their advice doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take it all the time. You still have to do what's best for you based on because you know all the pieces, the other person may not know all the pieces. So it's great to take advice, but then at the end of the day, you're the decision making body, you have the veto, and trust that. Get the right people around you to give you the advice, and know that, and they should be able to respect that even if you don't go with the advice that they give, you still have that comfort level that you can go back and forth with them multiple times. And then the last thing I would definitely say, and this is something I'm slowly practicing, is I put myself in, like, if this was a problem of my friend, what would I tell them? Right? If my friend was saying, I'm doubting myself, I would psych her up, right?
Exactly.
And then why am I not doing that for me? So the advice that I can give other people, why not give that to myself? Why am I not listening to my own advice? Because as women or as people, young people, we're great at giving advice, whether it's relationship advice, whether it's about careers and stuff, but we're very terrible at listening to our own advice.
Yeah.
So I change the situation in my mind and I start thinking of it. Okay, so if Clara came to me with this problem, how would I tell her what to do? And take it the same way. Now, think of yourself as a third person and psych yourself up the same way. Give yourself that same advice and allow yourself to, grow naturally with those mistakes and everything.
Yes, and it's usually easier to beat ourselves up. There's something that I read. If you're in a bad situation and you are saying hateful speeches to yourself, just imagine that you're talking to your friend. Would you tell her or him that kind of thing?
Exactly. So kindness starts with yourself, and that's something we genuinely need to learn as young people. Is there is a lot of pressure out there. There's a lot of expectations. The good thing about being young, like I was saying earlier, is you're allowed to make mistakes. You do not have stop thinking as if you have the whole world's burden on your shoulders. The world will still function. What you need to do is, if you want to make it better, you need to first be better for yourself. And rightfully, like you said, you would not say hateful things to others. So why are we bringing it to ourselves? It should be self-love first. You should be able to be your own best friend. Like, be kind to yourself. And while we are saying we need to be kind to the world, why aren't we kind to ourselves? Why are we always criticizing ourselves? Why are we so nitpicking about ourselves? We have to allow ourselves to be imperfect. We're allowed to make mistakes. And the minute we are accepting of that, we're accepting that we're in a process, in a journey, and we're still learning, then we will be able to accept that, okay, it's fine, I'm not a perfect human being, but I'm happy as I am, and I'm able to do, I'm not limited, right? And it opens up so much more opportunity, because it takes away a mental burden when you're not second guessing yourself, when you're allowing yourself to make a mistake and then grow from that. It's so much easier than constantly going like, being anxious and going like, but this could go wrong, but that could go wrong. Let it go wrong, because when it goes wrong, you know how to mitigate it, right? Or when it goes wrong and you don't know, you will learn it. So in the future, it will not happen. Worry is, I'd say, it's a poison that you take now while worrying about the future. Worry is not something that's going to help you. You're ruining your present as well as your future while worrying. So sometimes it's good, of course, be critical and think analytically, but don't beat yourself up once you've made a decision. Things will flow, and things, that's how you grow.
And what if you have that inferiority complex, that you see people are above you, you just see yourself as nothing. Even though you are really working so hard, you feel as if you're not doing anything. Yeah. Does it come from comparison, or just your self-esteem and not knowing who you are?
I think it would come from both personally, right? It really depends on the environment that you grew in. A lot of imposter syndrome, from a lot of research and all, is deep-rooted in how you were raised, what type of people you were raised around, the community you were raised around, the sort of influences you had from peers, from parents, all those things, from media as well. So yes, a lot of young people do suffer from that inferiority complex, and it's very common. Anytime you go to a new job, like you were mentioning earlier, when people go into a new job and there are people who've been there for 20 years and they're giving you, you just suddenly feel small. But what I have learned over time is, when you get somewhere, you got there on your merit, right? You didn't just get there by sheer luck. And that's something that, people with imposter syndrome always say. We'll try and be humble and go like, no, I was in the right place at the right time. I was lucky. This was, the questions in the interview weren't so hard. No, you earned it. And you need to own what you earned, right? When you go into a job and there's always going to be someone better somewhere than you. The main thing is, are you willing to better yourself? Or are you just going to, this is a phrase I really love telling people is, do you want to marinate in your misery? Do you just want to stay there and keep gloating about how bad you've got it? Or do you want to sort of now say, okay, this person's a little better than me. Is there growth for me to learn from this person? This person has 20 years of experience. I'm still new. I'm 20. This person has enough experience of my whole lifetime. So definitely, there's so much space to grow. So inferiority complex comes from not knowing that you can do better. So first of all, start telling yourself there's opportunities to grow, there's opportunities to learn. That's number one. Yes, definitely. A lot of this is easier said than done. And for those people who suffer with inferiority complex and all, you could also seek professional help. Like therapy is something that really helps you understand where your inferiority is rooted into. And then you can navigate that. Nor you nor I am a therapist, and there's not one solution that fits all. But being able to actually seek out professional help really helps in these situations. The second aspect, like you said, people will always be better than you, but that does not diminish your own achievements in life, right? There's people like, if I say my dream was to have a Nobel Prize, I do not feel like inferior looking at the achievements of all the other Nobel Prize winners and what they went ahead to even achieve after the Nobel Prize, right? So as a child, I think from a teenage age, that was something I was very good at. I knew that even though with my limitations, there's always opportunity to stretch that boundary. And maybe I won't win a Nobel Prize, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. That's my big goal. It was as a child. Today, I'd be happy just being able to impact one life and change one life for one person out there. And I feel that would be more happiness to me than my childhood dream of wanting a Nobel Prize or changing the world. Because a life is as important in my perspective than a world.
But you're also changing the world in a way, because when people look at you and what you do, they are inspired. They just feel the need that I need to work extra hard so that I can achieve what I probably a certain degree or in STEM, anything they want to do. Yeah. So I remember there was a time I was in high school. I used to have this problem because I used to be the top of my class every single time. But there was a time, I think it was senior high, when I was in the senior
school.
Yeah. I remember dropping from the number one being the top person to around the 12th person in class. And then the teachers were concerned, and the go-to method was bringing me a therapist.
Right.
Actually, because I think I was looking at other people, what they were doing, instead of being authentic and just staying true to myself. Because I knew I was smart, but I was just failing. Even my math teacher was concerned, my physics teacher was concerned, because I just dropped tremendously. So I just had to backtrack. What was going wrong with me? Why am I beating myself up? Do I have this imposter syndrome? How can I fix it? Because I had to really work hard so that I can score a good grade in the national examination. So you just realize that you are not focused here. You are beating yourself up. You feel inferior. You feel as if people are on your neck. So I just had to focus on myself and stop all this chatter in my brain. Because the truth is, I am smart. That's the fact. And nothing can beat that. So what I can do is just read more and focus on myself, be authentic, and just look at my peers as good friends who are willing to propel me forward rather than seeing them as competition. So that was a struggle for me. I remember it really weighed me down, talking to a therapist every Friday. But at the start, I didn't feel like it was really needed, because I was like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Why are you taking me to a therapist? In the long run, I am so fine. But deep down, I wasn't. So yeah, being inferior and all that mess. But I'm glad that I navigated through it, even though now and then it comes.
Yeah.
It recurs. Maybe I tell myself I suck. Actually, it was a mantra for me. Every single time I do something and it doesn't go well, I just say I suck and I just leave it alone. That was my mantra. But I had to listen to podcasts. good podcasts, read books, personal development ones, so that I can gather my strength and see who I really am. Yeah, so that's an issue that's really affecting a lot of people, my friends, the younger generation, the older generation. They really feel like a fraud, and that's not the case. So I hope you've learned a lot from Hemanshi. She has really talked about her career and how she navigated through imposter syndrome. I mean, don't beat yourself up when it does recur, because we are all human. We are not robots. We can't just press a button and you are free from all this mental health stuff, crisis. All you have to do is just be authentic. Be your true self. We are humans. We make mistakes. Just accept that and continue living your best life, because life is short. You just do what you have to do, as long as it's propelling your passion and you're happy about it. That's something that you really go to. So on imposter syndrome matters, you just don't worry about it too much. Just continue filling yourself with great knowledge. Listen to great podcasts like this one, so that you can learn a lot, and listen to other people that will help you, or rather go to a therapist, talk to your friends. They will hype you up, they will gas you up. Everything will be fine. Imposter syndrome should not weigh you down from getting to your peak. So that's it for today. That's it for the episode. I hope you have learned a lot, because I have personally, and I'm going to take notes on that as well. So you just be your true self. Remember that you are awesome and you can achieve whatever you want to achieve in the long run. I'm here for your transformation, and we can do this together. So bye-bye. See you next time.